Welcome into Teal, the show. We're talking about the AFC South first place Jacksonville Jaguars tonight. Sounds great when you say it, doesn't it? Welcome in. I'm Jamal St. Cyr, and we've got 1010XL's Frank Frangie here. Frank, the Jaguars won 2 games in the past couple of days. Big week, big times, fun times here in Jacksonville as we get ready for the final 2 games of the regular season, and we're even going to be talking a little bit about maybe a postseason game here in Jacksonville. Come on.
Yeah, that first place sounded good when you said it. I love the open to the show. You're exactly right. I think that's got what everybody buzzing and stirring in town is the fact that this is a first place team right now. You know what? They've earned that. They've won 5 of the last 7. Trevor Lawrence has been remarkable in those 7 games. They said they would get it going, and they have. So these are good times, Jamal, no question about it.
Yeah, that hot streak and momentum's really carrying them right now, but the team understands just how hard they really worked to get into this position, and they're not getting ready to let it just pass them by.
I think obviously the sense of urgency just naturally goes up. We know what's in front of us. We control our own destiny, so I think our process just has to be dialed in a lot more. Just continue to do what we're doing, continue to trust our process, find ways to improve it. And know that we gotta go take these.
We've worked so hard and have fought through so much to get in that position, and it's been a goal of ours. When we first started this thing, now we're in that position and we want to stay there. So for us, the sense of urgency does arise, and that's why I said these last 2 games are must-wins for us.
The hard part about getting here to first place in the AFC South for the Jaguars was digging themselves out of the early season hole they put themselves in. Frank, October was rough, but at this point, it feels like forever ago.
It does, Jamal, and we all said this. You and I said it. Everybody else said it, media fans. They were better than the record. And I know they say, Bill Parcells once said you are what your record says you are. Well, unless you're not. And I'm not sure this team was. You could tell they were better. There was a difference. The culture was better. The competitiveness, they were in just about every game. They battled to the end. They led all those games in the fourth quarter. If you do that much for that long, ultimately it's going to start paying off. So they were close, but you could tell that close was going to become something. You really could. And they turned the corner. I don't know that they're playing all that much differently than they were then, except maybe the quarterback position where Trevor Lawrence has been lights out.
The difference a month can make has been remarkable for this football team, and they definitely have learned a lot from the struggles in October, and they're not trying to go back to where they were then.
Oh, it feels like a whole nother season, but just so glad we were able to, kind of flip, that page and come through on that, a better team. We kind of looked ourselves in the mirror. Press in our offensive meeting, this morning, put up after the bye week, we had a bunch of facts, and we're 3-7, and we had lost 6 one-score games and whatnot, and so you're sitting there in your seats at that time, you're like, man, we're 3-7, and this season can go 1 or 2 ways, and just the way we're able to fight through adversity and be in this position now, just makes you want to finish even more.
Frank, during all those October struggles, that 0-5 month, the Jaguars kept saying that their goal was to be playing their best football come December. And now we've seen the Jaguars playing some really good football. Do you think this team is playing their best ball yet?
I think this is who they are. I think this really is who they are, and that's a good football team. Whether there's another level to hit, we'll see. But I think the level they're playing at right now, nobody wants to play them, Jamal. So I think right now they're playing awfully well. Whether they've peaked, sometimes when you say peak, that means you're coming down. I don't think they're coming down. I think they're going to keep playing this well. This is who they are. I'm not surprised at all by it. I'm really not. I'm not surprised. Now, I wouldn't have told you when they were 3-7 or 2-6 they had a playoff possibilities because you didn't know what else was going to happen. But I thought they'd start winning those games. So I don't know if they've peaked. I know right now that I think this is who they are, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I think they're definitely playing up to their potential at this point. We need to see them consistently stay at that level like they've been doing over the past few weeks. Evan Ingram definitely doesn't think this team has peaked just yet, but he also says that he'll never accept where the team is at currently as their best.
I mean, in our eyes, we're always going to shoot for perfection. So we're going to continue to work, and we're going to continue to get better and try to improve no matter how many points we score, no matter how many games we win. We take it day by day and try to maximize that day.
All right, there's still plenty of Teal of the show ahead. Coming up after the break, we'll talk about the Jaguars' momentum as they push into a possible postseason spot. We'll talk about it when Teal of the show returns. Welcome back into Teal, the show. The regular season is winding down. The Jaguars in first place in the AFC South and a real chance at playing a postseason game this year for the first time since 2017. Momentum's a big thing. Frank, you said it earlier in the show. The Jaguars are a team that no one wants to play right now. It sounds so great when you say it. We can say it again and again. But, that's the momentum that we're talking about. This team is really rolling, and when you have a quarterback that's hot, no one wants to go against him and have to try and figure out how to slow them down. Momentum can be real in sports. I know some old school football coaches don't like to think it is, but, there's something to seeing yourself do it and then knowing that you can do it again.
I don't think there's any question about that, Jamal. This is a team that really believes in what they're doing. They know they're pretty good. You could see it being with them in New York, being around them. Even though it was a low-scoring defensive game, you can tell that they know that's who they are. They were confident. The difference in confidence between the Jets and the Jaguars was enormous in that game. And yeah, momentum's real, and they've got it right now.
Yeah, and the thing with momentum, you have to maintain it. So they have to keep playing at a high level so that way they can keep rolling.
It's big, just because the teams that catch fire, no matter what happened the first 10 weeks or 14 weeks or stuff like that, the team that catches fire usually is the team that gets on the run, so we want to be in that fire.
How do you kind of keep that going? How do you cultivate that, you know what I mean?
We have to keep playing how we're playing, and that goes in saying not letting down. We can't let down on anything. We have to keep the urgency up, and I think our urgency has been good. And we just have to keep finishing the way we are.
All right, Frank, now the question with the momentum. The Jaguars are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, but this week against the Houston Texans, if we start talking playoff scenarios, in the course of the AFC South, this game doesn't matter. But it would matter if they wanted to try and keep their hat in that possible wild card scenario. I don't want to go into all the stipulations that would have to happen. I think that one's really a long shot. Winning the AFC South is the way. But this game doesn't matter. So the question is, do you play everyone and go all chips in on Sunday against the Texans, or do you rest some of the injured guys and kind of say, we'll take the foot off the gas a little bit, but that could cost you some of that momentum?
Well, and that's the question. Forget about wild card. If Doug Peterson's got to decide, rest guys to keep them healthy for Tennessee, or keep playing to win and keep the momentum. It's not about the wild card, it's about the momentum. Look, we're only talking about a handful of guys. You only have 53 players. It takes 35 or 40 to play an NFL game when you count everybody. So you're really only talking about a handful of guys. You're talking about Trevor, Etienne, probably the three receivers, maybe a Khan, maybe Rayshawn. You're only talking about 5, 6, 7 guys. Everybody else is going to play, no matter how you play them. So the question becomes really, what do you do with Trevor? Because if you don't play Trevor, then you don't play the receivers. That's the tough conversation. I get it. I would expect, knowing Doug Peterson, he's probably going to play everybody. Now, I don't know that you rush back Fatukasi or Trayvon Walker, guys that have been hurt. This is a game you don't rush them back because you're playing with a little bit of house money here. But I would be a little surprised if none of those star guys play at all. But we'll see. I understand both sides of it. We'll see what Doug decides.
I think you hit it right on the head, Frank. Anybody that's like injured and on the kind of cusp, don't rush them back. Trayvon Walker, he's missed the last 2 games. Give him another week. Foley Fatukasi missed the last game with an ankle injury. Give him another week. Anybody that's banged up right now, use this as a week to rest and get ready for a game that's important. Now, I'm not saying rest everybody. Travis Etienne's healthy right now. Another game under his belt is helpful. But anybody that has an injury, even if it's a small one, you don't want to go out there and let's say Trayvon comes back and the ankle's okay, and then he tweaks it, and then now he's going to miss 2 more weeks. It's not worth that.
Yeah, and if I know Doug Peterson, my guess is Doug would rather come into that Tennessee game with a winning streak than a 1-game losing streak. I think that does matter. So again, in fairness to Doug, he's got to decide that. And then there's merit to both sides, and I get it. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that wants to go out there and play with half a team. He just does. That's just not what I think he is. So I'd be surprised if people didn't play at all. Now, if you get a lead at all, or if you get behind at all, maybe you pull them out quicker. Once the game's been decided. In the NFL, the backup usually doesn't go into the end of the game, even in a blowout. That could change a little bit if one team gets ahead by a significant margin. But it would surprise me a little if the significant guys didn't play in the game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Frank. Now, the one thing that I do want to bring up is that in each of the last games that the Jaguars have played, they lost a starter. First you lose Cam Robinson, now you lose Dewan Smoot. Walker Little stepped up and played well against the Jets in that left tackle spot. The guy I'm most concerned about is the loss of Dewan Smoot. I know the sack numbers aren't gaudy, but he puts up some of the team's high end pressures each week. He was a huge contributor on that defense. Great guy. I really hated to see him get injured, but replacing his role on the defense is going to be tough.
No question. They've not been a very good pass rushing team. That's reality. There's a lot of things they're doing so well. They haven't rushed the passer very well. We all know that. And he's the guy that plays with a great motor. He may not be the most talented pass rusher, but Dewan plays with a great motor. He's a great teammate. I hated it for him as much as I did the team because he plays so hard. It means so much to him. So I hated that for him. But yeah, the pass rush has been a joint effort. It's going to have to continue to be that. The good news is, if there's any good news at all, is it's a while before you play a high-flying passing team. Houston has not been a great passing team with Davis Mills. You know Malik Willis is not a great passer, and that's who Tennessee's going to have to play. Shoot, right now, if you play in the playoffs, it would be the Ravens, and they're not a great passing team. So, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but you don't play a drop-back passing team for a while so the new rhythm and the new rotation can take hold a little. But I hate it for Dewan. He's a good guy, he's a great teammate, and I hate that he won't be part of this.
All right, now my one hope from this whole scenario with maybe losing Dewan Smoot is maybe Trayvon Walker's getting to that point where he can kind of hit his stride late in the year. I know he's been sidelined with an injury, but there's actually some positive things that are coming from that. They kind of talked about it with Devin Lloyd earlier this year where, seeing the game from a different angle. They wanted him to see it from the sideline to understand maybe where his mistakes were made. And you've got a different perspective on this maybe than me, Frank, but Trayvon Walker, they talked about him being on the sideline, and when the defensive line guys came off, they said, Trayvon was there telling him, hey, try this move on this guy. And Trayvon maybe being able to see it from that sideline and say, hey, look, this move could work, or try this out here. Maybe that helps him when he gets back, so that way we can see some of those moves from him show up on the football field on Sunday, on game day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think part of that is not only watching from the sideline. From the minute Trayvon got here, Jamal, so much, the first overall pick in the NFL draft, that's a big burden, man. And they've been talking to him and watching him, and every move has been scrutinized. It almost helps a little bit that he got away from that, where there's some games where people couldn't scrutinize every move because he wasn't in the game. I think he could catch his breath a little bit. Rookies tend to hit that wall. I think maybe he hit it a little bit. So I think that helps. Having said that, I still think he's a hand-on-the-ground disruptor more than he is a play-in-space sack specialist. I don't think he's going to be that. I think he's going to get some sacks, but he's going to get them the way Chris Jones gets them in Kansas City, not the way Von Miller gets them. I think he's a hand-on-the-ground physical guy. But Trayvon Walker is going to be just fine. We had this conversation about Trevor Lawrence. When you get to the league, it takes a while before you're good in the league. It just does. I think Trayvon Walker is going to be a very good player. I really do.
All right, Frank, this is a little bit different. Normally on Friday episodes, we kind of pick the games, and last week was as interesting of a week as we get because of the Thursday night scenario, but I do want to kind of get you to pick something here. So right now, because by the time we get to this next Monday episode, we should know when the Jaguars Week 18 game will play. Jaguars don't get exactly a whole lot of primetime opportunities. When do you think that Week 18 game could get flexed to? Do you think it's going to stay at 1 o'clock? Do you think maybe some Sunday night football in the Jaguars' future, maybe?
I think there's a very good chance that'll be a Sunday night game. Here's the discussion the television folks will have. Tennessee and Jacksonville are not great markets, and they don't generate great ratings. Other teams generate better ratings. But the game means more than just about any other game that's going to be played. So I think it's got a good chance. Remember now, this week they moved Pittsburgh, Baltimore flexed in. Well, frankly, there's some games that meant a little bit more than that game. But those two teams are great ratings teams, so they went with the ratings game this week. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville, Tennessee got moved to Sunday night. It'll be the most meaningful game. There's no doubt in my mind. It is a playoff game. That's the one game that we all know is a playoff game. Some others might play into that, but I think there's a very good chance Tennessee and Jacksonville play on Sunday night. I really believe that could happen.
I'm right there with you, Frank. That's why I kind of put you on the spot with that one. I do think there's a really good chance of that. Yes, the Jaguars and the Titans maybe aren't the flashiest teams in the NFL, but, the Jaguars do have a quarterback that the NFL is going to look at as maybe one of the faces of the league for probably the better part of the next decade, especially now that you're seeing the way he's playing. So putting him on a primetime stage definitely wouldn't hurt the NFL's brand. We'll see when that happens. They still have a little while. They'll wait until all of Week 17 is in the books before they make that decision. Just wanted to talk to some people because I know a lot of folks with season tickets keep seeing that gray area where that kickoff time is, and they're asking when that game is going to be played. So there's a pretty good chance that this one could be a primetime matchup for the Jaguars. But this week they do have the Houston Texans. Texans have had the Jags number for a while, Frank. Obviously, that one kind of got away from them earlier this year. I know that's one that Doug and this entire team wants to get some revenge for.
Yeah, Jacksonville's got the better team. They're the better team, and they're playing better. Houston's been in a lot of games. They could have beat Dallas. They could have beaten Kansas City. They're right there, and then they did win last week. So Houston's another team that plays really hard for Lovie Smith. They're not a great team, but they get after it. They have not had great quarterback play. Jacksonville should win the game. They've got the better team. But, yeah, there is something to the fact that they haven't beaten that team in a long, long time. But remember this. This has been the season of broken streaks, Jamal, and I would be surprised if this one doesn't get broken too. Jacksonville clearly the better team when they play the Houston Texans.
All right, we'll have to talk a little bit more about that on Friday's episode of Teal the Show. Thank you for being here, Frank, and thank you at home for tuning in. Good night, and go Jags.